Hello and welcome back to True Crime Guys Podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
We have quite a case for you people. You may know him as Slave Master.
You may.
And he's also known as potentially the internet's first serial killer as well.
Yeah.
This guy was on the early days, chat rooms, catfishing people.
Right, one of the earliest catfishers, man. No doubt.
But what's crazy is he was killing. He'd already killed several people, like almost a decade prior to that. Then the internet came around. It's like he'd taken a break.
Yeah. Partially
because he was in jail. But then when the internet came around, he's like, hey, remember that killing thing I used to do? Maybe like this internet can make it even easier for me. So maybe I should get back into that hobby.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this dude was no idiot. He was, like most of these killers, the successful ones at least, he was somewhat smart, definitely a sociopath, and knew how to talk to people. And then
charismatic as fuck. Honestly, on this charismatic scale, this guy might be top 3 of all characters we've ever covered.
That's a bold statement.
And his physical appearance added to it. Like he had this jovial, I heard one of the documentaries we watched compare him to the Pillsbury Doughboy. He had this round face. He was always smiling. He had dimples. He just had this like a friendly, approachable face, and he also had the personality to go with it, like a true salesman, con man. Really, you could do a whole episode just on his cons alone, let alone the murders.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, he wasn't the most attractive guy, but like you say, he just seemed approachable and lovable. Like he just.
Did you see the pictures of him when he was a kid, like in the Cub Scouts though? Like he was a cute kid. Like,
I bet.
Had the dimples and stuff back then. Like he looked like he could have been like on a sitcom or something.
Like I say, that round face, man, that round face is just hard to deny, especially as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something warming about, there's something that trusting about it. He just doesn't seem as nefarious.
Yeah. But as he grew into his own, he became known for scamming, impersonating, killing, and putting bodies in barrels. And if that doesn't rope you in to get interested in this case, I don't know what will.
I have no idea.
Let's do it. Cue the intro. All right, for our case this week, we are doing a fairly known serial killer. If you're in the true crime world, you may have heard of this guy, Slave Master John Edward Robinson.
Yeah, I've seen his picture around before we
definitely
jumped into
you've
this.
seen that.
Yeah,
you've seen that round face. But yeah, I think that's where the extent of it is. If we were doing another case, which is usually the deal, I would see his face, whether it was Reddit or Instagram or whatever. Someone else had covered him, so I've seen that face a bunch, but never dove into him until this week.
Right.
And wow, I could see why his face is everywhere, because he's been around. He's a Renaissance man, if you will, in a dark form.
Yeah, no doubt. There's a lot to it. I can't believe it's taken us this long, really, to cover this guy. This seems like something we would have covered a couple years ago, for sure.
Right. This guy makes you feel lazy in a way. He started. How many businesses did he start? How many business? Like, he was.
Yeah.
He was a bit like our episode on Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, Frank Abagnale.
Frank Abagnale Jr. This guy would just fake it till you make it. He would walk into places and just charm them and lie to them and say that he had all these degrees and whatnot and get these high-paying jobs and then immediately start ripping the company off for a shitload of money. This was like, the whole earlier part of his adulthood until he started killing, and then we'll get into that.
Yeah, he talked his way into jobs, and then he instantly figured out a way to profit off of it illegally. Like, this guy's a fucking Robert California turned serial killer.
Right.
It's crazy what this guy was able to do.
Yeah, and he would absolutely, half the time he would charm his way out of it too. He would get the company to agree that he could just pay back the money that he stole from them.
Right.
They would just go their separate ways.
Probably just give him some sob story. I really needed it. Yeah. Whatever he had to say. This guy was a chameleon.
Giving it to charity.
Yeah, sure you were.
He gets to scamming charities too, and using them as a means to get victims as well later.
Oh yeah,
this guy is crazy. So let's get into him. John Edward Robinson was quickly actually. Let's talk about the book that we used to study this case and a couple other sources. So the book we got is called Anyone You Want Me to Be, A True Story of Sex and Death on the Internet by John Douglas. You may have heard of John Douglas if you know true crime. Mm-hmm. Little known guy, from the FBI.
Right. May have heard of him.
Mindhunter, may have heard of that. He had a little role in that.
Right.
So, well done book. That's where we got a lot of the information from this case, as well as, there was like an ABC special.
Yes.
What was it?
There's also
the Last One Standing or something like that it was called.
Yeah, and then there's also a crime investigation channel
there's
documentary as well. But
there's a lot of stuff on this guy.
Yeah, but the documentaries mainly only focus on his crimes. They don't really focus a lot on his early year or his murders rather. I'm sorry. They don't focus on all the extra crimes, all the earlier cons and shit that we're going to go through in this episode. So
right.
That's the benefit of the book. So there's so much to this guy.
So let's get into it. John Edward Robinson was born in Cicero, Illinois,
Illinois, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, Cicero, Illinois, on December 27th, 1943, and shares a birthday. This is kind of funny because we were just talking about this guy on Just the Banter recently. Bill Goldberg. He shares a birthday with the great Bill Goldberg, wrestler.
Wow, not worthy.
Someone asked us who our favorite wrestler was on Just the Banter, and that was my answer, was Goldberg, just because my grandpa was a big wrestling fan and loved Goldberg. So as a kid, I just watched him spear everybody. And
that's right.
Legend.
Goldberg also made tribal tattoos okay for white guys. There you go. So thanks. What a revolutionary.
Everybody else that got him just didn't look quite as cool, though.
Not a chance.
You really got to be just an absolutely yoked bald guy to pull that off.
No doubt. Goldberg was a champ, bro. I wonder what he's up to now.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. It's funny, man, like how many dudes that were like in their 20s in the early 90s that are still rocking that. They're like 50 something now, and they got the tribal armband. My father-in-law actually has it.
There you go, man.
He didn't even get it all the way around the arm though. He likes like the inside of the arm where it hurts. He didn't fill that part in.
Oh, he didn't fill it in. Yeah, I had a friend that got it wasn't tribal, but it was barbed wire, and he did the same thing. And I'm like, bro, you're trying to look. You got barbed wire around.
That
your arm.
Is what it is. I think it's actually barbed wire.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right.
I'm like, you got barbed wire around your arm, but you didn't get it all the way. It's like, how tough are you? Like, oh. I mean, you can't get it on the underside of the arm. Yeah, that's hilarious.
So John was born to Henry and Alberta Robinson. His father Henry was a machinist who worked long hours. When he was home, he was most likely drunk. So
here we go.
He
not much
young
of a
John's
figure.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he wasn't. There was no evidence that he was abusive necessarily when he drank, but he would get rowdy.
Okay.
And John was the middle of the 5 children born to Alberta and Henry. Mm-hmm. John, by all accounts, had a pretty normal upbringing. His father was known to binge drink, and his mother was very strict. But other than that, there was no reports of abuse or anything unusual.
Right. Okay.
And he was John was a loved kid. Really was kind of he went above and beyond. Like, he became an Eagle Scout, and like talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that set him apart from other kids early on. He was showing that charisma and that go-getterness early on.
Right.
In the fall of 1957, when he was 13, he became an Eagle Scout and was granted the privilege of leading his troop on stage for a performance in England, where the honored guest was none other than Queen Elizabeth herself.
That's pretty impressive.
Queen Elizabeth II. That's what I'm saying. Like, he stood above the other kids in his peer group.
Right. I mean, in 1957, I mean, what else is a 13-year-old going to do?
I know, right? Yeah, you're not gonna sit around playing Minecraft.
Right. He didn't bring his Nintendo Switch with him, so yeah, he might as well become an Eagle Scout.
Yeah. While at this event, backstage, he was photographed with Judy Garland, who... Why did I just turn Irish when I said Garland? Judy Garland.
Judy Garland.
Judy Garland from Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he allegedly pursued her and said, quote, "We Americans got to stick together," after she walked by the troupe backstage. And she actually gave him a kiss on the cheek, and I think they got a photograph together as well.
Oh, wow.
So he just was never afraid to take his shot, you know? He was a guy that was just, even as a kid, he just wasn't the opposite of shy. He was incredibly outgoing.
Yeah.
And,
extremely charismatic and confident at such a young age.
Yep. Yeah, he seemed to be a charmer at a very young age, able to talk himself in and out of situations, and would attend Quigley Preparatory Seminary for boys in Chicago and studied to become a priest.
Man, it's like he just wanted to do everything right by the book early on, right? He really wanted people to like him, it seemed.
Yes. And also, like when you said he wanted to do everything, I was about to say yes, because he seemed like he also just wanted a taste of every bit of life in general. Like I said, makes me feel lazy or, whatever, because this guy...
like not as
the
ambitious.
life that he lived... Yeah, aside from the horrible, heinous crimes that he did.
Right.
If you just look at all the different places he went and all the different places he worked and business he started, and
but
he was a busy man. Let's just put it that way.
No doubt.
So in 1961, he attended Morton Junior College, where he changed his course of study and instead focused on being an X-ray technician. However, he never completed the training program to become an X-ray technician, but did that stop him from becoming an X-ray technician?
Absolutely not. Why would it?
Not for a second. Not for a second. I mean, who needs to actually learn the job that you're going to do?
When you
can just act like you know how to do it?
Let me ask you a question. When have you shown your high school diploma to an employer? Never. Bro.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. Like, I don't know if I actually had to like scan it or anything like that. I think I just put in what year I graduated.
Exactly.
You just type that in.
Exactly. That's what everyone does.
Well, especially when you're talking about the 50s and 60s. Like, there's just no, accountability. There's no checking. Like, we see that throughout this whole thing. We saw it with the Catch Me If You Can episode. You pretty much can just make up a fake paper real quick. Type some shit up, put a signature on it, and, there you go. You got a fucking degree from Harvard.
As long as you're charismatic and confident enough to portray that in an interview, then you're good to go.
That's all it was, man. And he had that. So he doesn't complete the training to become an X-ray tech, but he just walked into various hospitals and lied to them and landed a job at Chicago Hospital as an X-ray tech.
There you go.
Which reminds you of Frank Abagnale Jr. completely. Like he does this time and time again.
A little bit, but at least John had a little bit of experience as an X-ray tech. I know he didn't.
At least he went to some of the schools.
Right.
He didn't complete it, but yeah,
he didn't complete the program. But I'm sure he still had the books. He still had worksheets and essays and shit that were written. And I'm sure he was able to study. Well, so did Frank Abagnale, though. To be fair, he went to the library. The library was his best friend, and he studied up on these things as well. But Frank Abagnale had zero experience, though. Like, no college. And he went in and posed as a doctor. Like, my God. Not just an X-ray tech, as an actual doctor, man.
I know. To think he was actually, like, working on people.
Oh, my God.
This is so crazy.
The cojones to do that, bro. Like, we talked about it, but my God.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. So John would marry a woman named Nancy Lynch in 1964, and she would be very soon pregnant. And the couple would go on to have 4 kids over the coming years, as well as a number of grandkids. And John would, throughout the rest of their relationship, continually cheat on her and be off doing all kinds of scams and everything else.
Right.
But she was with him throughout this case.
Stuck by his side.
Yeah. So shortly after becoming married to Nancy, he gets fired from his job after suspicions of embezzlement. This would be a common theme. Every employer he ever worked for, he basically ripped off in one way or another.
Right.
This time, the hospital did not file criminal charges since John had promised to pay back what he stole.
It's crazy.
However, as a reoccurring theme, nothing is paid back and John gets away.
Wah, wah, wah.
Promises to pay him back. There was one where he owed like an employer $50,000 and he paid him back $40,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
They must have been on him, I'm guessing, in threatening to, have him arrested or whatever.
And he was like, it's still worth it for $10,000.
Right. Yep. So after the being fired from the hospital, John and Nancy relocated to Kansas City. where most of this case would take place from there on out.
Yeah.
Good old Kansas City. We love our Kansas City Creepers. Shout out to all of you.
Yeah, there's even
the Chiefs.
There's even a Olathe reference in this episode.
Yes, and, Olathe.
And we, of course, John bounces back and forth between Kansas City and Missouri, or Kansas and Missouri, rather.
Yeah.
So that makes things difficult. So try to keep up with that, guys. But it's all in that same area, pretty much, from what I can tell.
Yeah. So John is able to land a job at a pediatric hospital, again, as an X-ray technician, even after being canned from his last hospital for embezzlement.
You just leave that off the resume. Easy peasy.
I'm guessing during the embezzlement situation, they never really realized that he was not even, trained to be he didn't have any qualifications to be an X-ray tech.
That's what's crazy.
They didn't look into that.
Yeah, they fired him on embezzlement. Apparently, he was doing a great job as an X-ray tech. And look, and they didn't even want the money. I mean, they didn't even get the money back, and they were going to let him pay it back. So that means he had to have had some sort of good relationship with them. He was probably doing fine at his job as an X-ray tech. That's the irony of it. But he just got in trouble for embezzling. So it's not too crazy to think that he got another X-ray job, because he probably did know the job pretty well, especially now.
Yeah, well, at the pediatric hospital, he got exposed a little quicker. Part of it was he wasn't that great with the kids, and you really, I think it's a totally, like, the pediatric field is a far different skill set. You have to be very passionate and
patient,
you have to have compassion,
understanding,
patience, yes. And he was just in it to scam hospitals, and not so much, he didn't care so much about making the kids comfortable when he was x-raying them and things like that.
Right. I could see that.
And the staff would come to realize this, and he would be fired from this hospital as well. He would quickly be let go. And at Michigan and Kansas at the time did not require technicians to be licensed, but employees did expect applicants to be trained and experienced. So that, I guess technically, there could have been others like him that didn't have the licenses, but just had the skill set.
Well, it was probably a field at that time in which you could get a certification, or if you had enough shadowing hours in a pediatric, or not a pediatric, but a hospital or whatever, then you could get your degree as well, or be a certified technician if you have enough years experience.
I don't know. Maybe I'm being ignorant, and I apologize if I offend any X-ray techs out there. But it just seems like you generally you're not evaluating the X-rays. That's the doctor's job, right? So you just got to make sure you scan the right part of their body, right?
Right.
Pretty much.
But X-ray technicians,
doesn't seem like it's that hard.
But they do understand the X-rays. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but they don't need to.
Well, they don't need to, but they do. Probably X-ray techs are probably some of the best at reading X-rays, honestly, because they see them all the time and they see them as they happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. You just hear that a lot. You hear that a lot from nurses as well, how they, a lot of nurses are more qualified than doctors because they're there all the time. They're right beside these patients. They actually are there witnessing the side effects of different medications and the way surgeries are done and whatnot. So,
yeah,
I don't know. Just saying. Not that the doctors aren't qualified. Just saying.
Yeah. So by this time, John was already known amongst the colleagues that he worked with to be quite a wild man or a night owl, having affairs with female coworkers and women he met at nightclubs. This would be just as common as him scamming his employers. He was also known to sleep with every woman he could within, whatever workplace he was in, every time.
Right.
After his short time at the Children's Hospital, he was let go, but lands a job with Dr. Wallace Graham, who happened to be President Harry Truman's personal physician at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So just really charming his way into the higher ranking members of society.
Right. And he's getting fired. It's like fired, new job, fired.
Yeah,
we'll take
upgrade,
you.
Fired, upgrade, fired, upgrade. Just keeps getting a better job each time.
Yeah, society really taught. No wonder this guy went bad. Jesus
just failing
Christ.
Upwards over and over again.
This guy did not know what failure was. It just didn't. It wasn't in his vocabulary.
He should have gone into politics. He would have become president eventually.
Right, walked his way
just
right
keep
in.
Failing upwards. Yeah. He would end up over the next couple of months embezzling an estimated $100,000 to $300,000 from the office before anyone caught on, which in today's dollars would be around $1 million, or I think it was $800,000 or $900,000.
Oh yeah, $300,000 today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
In the late 60s. Yeah, that's a lot of inflation that occurred after that.
Not kidding.
He was also accused of sleeping with coworkers and patients during visits, with one woman admitting she was duped into sleeping with John after he told her about his wife that was dying from a terminal illness. My God.
Wow. This dude, he had no conscience whatsoever, man. Just a straight
Zero.
sociopath. Probably from a kid. That's probably why he had so much success as a kid. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
I think he learned as a kid he could really like talk his way into whatever.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, if I'm cute enough and I'm charming enough, I can literally do whatever the hell I want.
Yep. He attempted to make the same deal with Dr. Graham as he did the hospital in Chicago and pay back all of the stolen funds, but Dr. Graham wasn't having it. He said no and filed criminal charges against him. However, you know, if you thought justice would be served here, you would be wrong, because this would be like his first real run-in with the law, and he would be given a slap on the wrist. He was found guilty of stealing by means of deceit, but remarkably was only given 3 years of probation.
That's insane.
Yeah, well, if the prior employers would have held him accountable and, you know, had him arrested for stealing so much money from them,
that's true.
They would have more of a track record, you know, and see that he's a reoffender, and, you know, hopefully they would have given him more jail time. But
it makes
you have to hold people accountable. You can't just let them off easy.
It makes you wonder about these practices, doesn't it? The fact that they wouldn't. It's like if he stole tens of thousands of dollars from you, like, why wouldn't you hold him accountable? Why wouldn't you press charges? Unless you don't want an investigation into your hospital.
Right, maybe.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe the fact that he was able to get away with that in their hospital exposes way more loopholes than the fact of just letting him take that money and dip.
And maybe somebody somebody above him their head would have rolled because they let it happen.
Precisely, because the right checks and balances weren't going in place, and he was able to benefit off of that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. And of course, this would become the blueprint for one side of John's life for the next decade. He would get hired to a job he was underqualified for, steal a shit ton of merchandise or money, and then get caught, but serve no time. So
incredible.
It's like, why wouldn't you? You know,
right?
If there's no real consequences, why wouldn't you just keep doing it?
Exactly. It's easy. It keeps happening. This dude's going to be the Surgeon General before long.
Exactly. Like I said, just keep failing upward. Then in 1970, the Robinsons moved back to Chicago, and John took a job as an insurance salesman, but then again failed when he, you guessed it, embezzled money from his employer.
No, he didn't. He would never.
So he had a short stint in Chicago before being ordered back to Kansas City by a parole board after he violated his probation. So he decided to establish his own company in Kansas City.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, why not? Just make your own company to steal from.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, there you go.
Why fuck around with other people's companies?
The boss can't get mad at you when you're the boss. Brilliant.
Exactly. Yeah, and you really know all the loopholes of your own company.
Right. I can't believe this guy didn't just, like, if he was around nowadays, he would just be one of those people that makes an entire fake company or a fake festival and gets people to invest.
He'd just have a bunch of shell companies.
Yeah, exactly. There'd just be a bunch of
probably
bullshit.
Be charities, you know?
Yeah.
Charities. You'd create a shitload of charities and just be funneling all that money into offshore accounts or something.
Oh, my God. No doubt. There's too many people doing that.
Hanging out on Epstein's Island.
Oh, God.
So his first attempt at a company was called Professional Services Association, which just sounds so vague intentionally. Like,
exactly.
What do you do? Professional service. We do professional services, sir.
We're an association of that.
We're an association of professional services.
We're also incorporated.
So he pitches it as a medical consulting firm, and the company went under after Robinson is convicted of yet more white-collar crimes, including forgery, false representation, and mail fraud.
Jesus Christ.
So how much money he has taken over the years is still unknown, but it must have been quite a bit, because in 1977, the Robinsons are able to move back to the Missouri side of Kansas City, where they purchased a very nice 9-room home in a small suburb known as Pleasant Valley Farms. So it pays to be a criminal, you know?
Apparently. That's what I'm learning from this case.
Yep.
Yeah.
And while in Pleasant Valley, he would eventually weasel his way into every possible position within the community. First, he became an elder in the church, a referee in the local volleyball games and his son's soccer games, and was even the president of the Pleasant Valley Farms HOA.
Oh, my God. This dude is so fucking creepy, man.
I'm telling you, he should have been a politician. He would have been so successful.
He would have dominated. He would have absolutely dominated. But he just didn't want that much light on him. You know, he was too smart for that. He's like, I'm just going to be involved in all the underlyings of the community and in my immediate community. You know?
Yeah, true. There might have been too much of a spotlight on him.
Yeah, like depending on what church he's at, You know what I mean? Like, and how big of a standing that church has in that community, that's a huge role right there. And then like being at kids
how many of the donations
shit?
to the church do you think he was skimming?
Oh, bro.
All of them, right?
You know, he always...
We'll leave $2 for Jesus, and I'll take the rest. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take up the offering alone, as usual.
Right.
You guys just wait in the back, and we'll count it.
Since I am spreading the word so well, I feel I am due compensation.
That's right. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, so again, John tries to start his own business venture here. This time it's hydrogrow. It's amazing how like many different avenues of business he went at. Like, oh, I think I'll start a hydroponics growing company now.
Yeah.
Like having no expertise in that at all. Like, but you know what?
What the
Fuck
hell?
it.
It's hot right now. I'm seeing ads for that.
Exactly. And it's with the falsity of this company that he's able to pull off one of his more brazen plans. On December 8th, 1977, John Robinson was named, quote, Man of the Year, according to an article of the Kansas City Times.
Wow.
This amazing honor was given to him for his employment of disabled persons and was presented by the local Sheltered Workshop Association, with a plaque and a speech being given personally by the mayor. But a hit piece would come out on him by the local media and pulled the rug out from under him when they discovered that Robinson had made the plaque, the bouquet, and all of the arrangements regarding the award and luncheon himself.
My God. That's brilliant.
He made his own award ceremony, his own award, everything. Just made a whole night about him.
I fucking love it. Oh, my God. The brazen balls to do this, man. This guy is insane.
Talk about taking fake it till you make it to the next level, dude.
I know.
Holy shit. He's make your own award show.
He's literally making it so he can
like
fake
the Dundies or something.
The Dundies.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. We got to quit with the Office references.
I know, right?
Shit.
So John had taken advantage of the local Shelters Association and forged several signatures, and he knew how to prey on the weak. So, yeah, we know he's good at this. And he's again picked up and charged and serves a little bit of time for these other crimes. And in 1979, just after being released from prison, he lands a job at Guy's Foods, the employee's relations manager, and quickly is back at his same behavior. He sparks up an affair with his secretary and begins to slowly drain the company's accounts. Within a year, he's facing felony charges, and Guy's, the grocery store, has filed a civil lawsuit against him. John is ordered to pay $50,000 in restitution, but it would end up shortchanging the company and only paying around $40,000, which is what I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, this is that company. So it was a grocery store.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like Guy's made out pretty well compared to the other companies that he had ripped off. He got back 4/5 of what he had stolen.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, they probably had obvious track record of him selling or stealing merchandise or money disappearing on his shifts or whatever, so they had him dead in the water. It's a little I think it's a little easier to track and keep up with in a grocery store,
right?
You know what I mean? You got all these different people doing inventory and stocking and shit. It's a little harder than it is a doctor's office.
Yeah. So he of course he's not discouraged by this latest failure. He just goes ahead and starts another business. This one is sure to stick.
Definitely.
Equiplus was marketed as a consulting service to the public. One of the products offered was provided his customers with a better way to store bull sperm.
Yeah, I always needed that. So
from hydroponics to bull sperm.
Thank you so much. I mean,
this guy's covering all the bases.
I got tons of bull sperm. I just don't know where to store it. So
I have so much bull sperm. I don't know what to do with it.
I don't know what to do with it. Thank God for Equiplus.
Oh. Oh my God. However, this company wouldn't last. Unbelievably, with all the excess bull sperm in the world,
I can't believe it.
You still couldn't find a niche.
That just blows me away.
Yeah. By now, he had made his way into the equine community. He had bought horses and tried to fit in with the local community. But by the conditions of his horses, he obviously had no idea what he's doing. His horses were, people were noticing that they were borderline starving, that they were malnourished, that the facilities were not maintained.
Oh, jeez.
You can't fake it when you go into the farm world, dude. Like the real farmers, like those people, the horse people, they know what's up. Like you wouldn't fool my wife, who's been, had horses for 20 years.
Also, the commitment it takes is obvious.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't have time to fake it in that. You really have to live that life.
Yeah, it's not a side venture. No.
Yeah. But it was this company that opened John up to the newest tool in his long list of skills. Through a potential investor, John was introduced to computers and the amazingness that is Xerox machines. And this would help to improve his forgery skills as well. So after that company inevitably failed, he launched another one called Equi2, which apparently provided consulting services to medical, agricultural, and charitable ventures.
Oh, I see what he's doing. He's just combining them all under one roof.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. He's got experience in all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you need some consulting for your medical records or some bull sperm, I got you covered,
That's
homie.
right. Yeah, and if you just want to give money away to charity, I can also help you with that.
Yeah, quote unquote, give money to charity. For this company, he leased an apartment in Kansas City, and an area known. This was an area known for prostitution, drugs, and other criminal activity, which was right up his alley. You know, he really liked being in that area because then he could just really get in with the seedy underbelly of the community.
Right.
And he was known to later be running a brothel from this business as well. So of course he's not averse to getting into the sex world wherever he can make money, and also he was well known in the BDSM community, and he would become more and more well known as the internet would emerge, being known as Slave Master, as we would come to know.
Right.
And didn't follow many of the rules of BDSM with safe words and things like that. But we'll get into more of that later. He really got off on the pain and the abuse of people.
Much like all the other departments he went in. He probably didn't know shit about this either. He just jumped into it and was like, "Oh, this sounds fun. This might be something I enjoy."
We get sex and hurting people together. Let's do it.
Perfect. This is for me. I can fake my way into this. How hard could it be?
So the apartment was part of John's cons. He presented himself as a charitable man who was helping young women who were down on their luck. But the reality was he would put them up in the apartment and basically rent them out to other businessmen. So he was essentially a pimp doing like, a more poor version of Epstein, I guess.
Yeah.
Renting out these young women to rich businessmen and things like that.
Right.
He was also known to be interested in BDSM, which we just talked about, and would look for women who were also interested in similar relationships. And this would ultimately lead him into Moida. And this is where we get into the Moida section of this case.
Here we go.
It gets heavy. So in 1984, John put an article in the local newspaper seeking a sales representative for his company. That ad was unfortunately answered by a 19-year-old girl named Paula Godfrey. She had graduated high school the year before, was an honor student, and a distinguished figure skater. John promised Paula that basically the world. He said that with paid training in San Antonio, with all the expenses paid, a great salary, and the pleasure of working for a family business. So he offered her this almost unbelievable job, like too good to be true, and it turned out it was.
Mm-hmm.
But all these perks for, he knew how to appeal to a young person, a young girl that was looking to get their life started just out of school. I'm like, this is an exciting opportunity. I get to travel. I get to see things. It's good pay.
Of course.
All of this stuff. He knew how to appeal to that and rope them in.
Yeah, and you got to think most people didn't have the "if it's too good to be true, it probably is," mottos stapled in their freaking brain, because these are the early days of the internet. Well, it's the early days of the internet too. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And you're like, why would these people lie to me?
Well, this wasn't even internet yet. This is 1984. He put an ad in the newspaper.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So John sells her this whole bag of goods and tells her that she'll be training in Texas, at which point he picks her up from her parents' house in Kansas City to take her to the airport, where she is never seen again alive. This would be a new pattern in John's life. He would, promise these young women things, pick them up, and they would disappear. And naturally, after not hearing from their daughter, the Godfreys became worried. Paula's dad flew down to San Antonio, where she was supposed to be staying, and finds out that she had never checked in. He then goes back and confronts John Robinson, who offers no help or answers. Godfrey threatens John, saying there will be serious trouble if he does not hear from his daughter in the next 3 days. And almost immediately after that, a letter appears in the mail that seems to be sent by Paula, but upon inspection, her parents are able to tell that she did not write the letter. In the letter, she, quote, supposedly her, says that she no longer wishes to see her family and gives no explanation, but of course, she took a minute to thank John Robinson for all of his help.
Oh, of course.
It's almost too on the nose. It's like having your buddy grade your paper in class and giving you 100 instead of like an 88,
Right. Yeah,
it
is on the nose, but this is where becoming a narcissist and a sociopath doesn't play in your favor, because they're reading because he had to mention himself in this fucking letter. He had to. I mean, come on. He's like, I got to make sure I have no guilt in this, that she liked me and I was good to her. Got to make sure you put that in there. When in reality, if a daughter was writing home to her parents, they don't even know who this dude is. They don't give a fuck about him. She would be trying to tell them, I'm fine. I'm okay. I love you guys. I'll try to see you when I can. Just the fact she no longer wishes to see her family.
Yep.
And gives zero explanation. Yeah, no wonder they threw a red flag.
Right. So the letter would be handed over to the police and a missing persons investigation was started. However, after talking to John Robinson and reading the note, the police informed the Godfreys that there was nothing they could do. So John wins over the police, it sounds like, uses his charisma yet again and convinces them that he had nothing to do with her disappearance. To the police, it appeared that their daughter, who was an adult, had left on her own, and there were no signs at this time that anything had happened to her. So they believed this bullshit note.
Yeah.
Probably just because it was convenient for them and, it was less work.
Well, also, though, the note did have her real signature on it. That was something
John was known to make girls sign a blank piece of paper so that he could,
Exactly. And then he would take it,
Xerox that shit, and put it onto a printed letter.
Precisely.
He would type out a letter. He did this over and over again. We would come to find out.
Yep. So that's why the police believed it was her. They're like, "Well, is this your daughter's signature on the paper?" They're like, "Yeah." Okay. Well, what's the problem?
To me, it's suspicious as well that, like, if you're sending a letter to your parents, you ran off and you're starting a new life or whatever, you're troubled.
Yeah.
Would you type a letter to your parents, or would you just fucking sit down and write it? You already signed it at the bottom, supposedly.
You know what? In the late 1980s, I probably wouldn't, because where the hell would you get a computer? Where do you have a typewriter?
Even a typewriter.
Right, you're carrying around a typewriter with you in your car.
You ran off, and yet you have access to a typewriter.
Yeah.
Like, what'd you do? Go to the library just to type this thing up? Wouldn't you just sit down and write it? But
right.
Of course, John couldn't imitate the handwriting to that extent. So it just, to me, it's a huge red flag that all these letters are typed out with the signature at the bottom.
Absolutely.
It became a calling card of his.
No doubt.
And it's around this time that John is believed to have come in contact with a group known as the International Council of Masters.
Ooh.
And it's just a group of old creepy guys. It's described as a secretive sadomasochistic group or cult who all share a desire or interest in the same thing: a dominant, submissive, or master and slave relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So not just creepy dudes, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just disparaging this community where probably most of them were cool people that just this was their thing and nobody was being harmed by it, and it's
No, I mean, it's fine. It's just the fact that they labeled this International Council of Masters that makes it sound creepy.
Yes,
it's like, it's fine if you're a master and you're part of the master group or whatever, but it's just like the International Council. Ugh. Like, what do you guys meet with hoods and shit?
Cringy. Like for sure. You imagine them having like staffs and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. They got like these weird seances and shit. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's funny.
Later in 1984, a worker at a local hospital became suspicious of John when he presented himself as a head of a local charitable organization looking to help new moms get on their feet.
Oh,
yikes!
Definitely not.
This is his new catfishing thing, or he's going to get new victims.
Yeah.
However, during the holidays, the hospital had contacted Robinson about a mother needing help. He seemed excited at first and eager to help, but when he found out that the girl and baby were black, he started to backstep. So it's not just a scam artist and murderer, but also a racist.
Right. Or he's thinking about something else. He's thinking about...
or he's procuring children for a specific person.
Yes. He's looking for a certain type of baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this immediately threw up red flags for the hospital, and every encounter afterwards involved John asking what color the baby was. He seemed to be looking for a white baby. The staff contacted the probation officer. So they find out this guy is also on probation. That's not great. You're trying to... connect these young mothers that need help and babies to this man who's on probation and is asking, specifically for white babies only.
Right.
Like, what kind of charity is that?
Exactly.
Shouldn't a charity help anybody that's in need, not just no, white kids only, please?
Right. Yeah, that's a little bit suspicious.
And also, I'm on probation. Don't look into my past at all, please.
No, don't worry about that.
Not the the large array of scams that I've done in the past. Don't look into that at all.
No, I'm a changed man.
And the fact that I'm connected to a missing girl as well.
Right.
The staff contacted the probation officer who was in charge of John's case, a guy named Steve Hames, and notified him that John could be involved in some kind of baby selling operation. And Steve Hames this is the probation officer that was always on to John, right? He always thought he was up to more, to no good, like more so than just scams. Like, this guy was like on him.
Yeah, Steve Hames is like the type of probation officer you don't want if you're a criminal.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to be at your fucking house like all the time.
Yeah, takes his job seriously, as you should.
Yeah.
So Steve begins to look into John's past and immediately becomes concerned. In the meantime, another medical facility had not been informed of John's suspicious behavior, and they contacted him when a young mother came in with a 4-month-old baby. And she fit the mold. This was a white girl with a white baby, 19-year-old Lisa Stassi, who had been living in a women's shelter ever since her marriage fell apart. Her ex had returned to the Navy to re-enlist, leaving her alone with their new daughter, Tiffany. John picked up Lisa and Tiffany from her mother-in-law's house and checked them into a hotel. This part's fucked up. Just hours later, Lisa calls her mother-in-law crying and frantic. She's upset that her mother-in-law is trying to take her baby. At least this is what this man, John, has told her is going on. He's convinced her that the mother-in-law is trying to take her baby away. And she calls her and confronts her about this. The mother-in-law is saying that that's nonsense. You know, I would never take your baby away. And she also tells her mother-in-law that this man had made her sign blank pieces of paper, and she was scared and, you know, upset on the phone. And just before hanging up, suddenly she says the last words anyone would hear from her, quote, "They are coming," which definitely leads you to believe there's more than John here.
I was about to say, why does she keep saying they?
Now, he was getting this baby for his younger brother, right? That's what we come to find out.
Yeah.
Who had struggled to, have a baby with his wife.
Right.
They had struggled doing that, and they always wanted to adopt, and that's what John was getting this baby for. That's why it had to be a white baby. Mm-hmm. It makes me wonder, was his brother also part of this situation?
Right.
Was that they? Was it him? Like, who else would it have been? It doesn't make any sense for anyone else.
No, it doesn't. We'll more on that later, though.
Yeah.
I want to have a discussion about that.
Yeah, but the they in this has always confused everyone close to the case, leading them to believe maybe John had an accomplice.
Right. Or she at least believed somehow that this was a bigger organization. I don't know if maybe he had other women there with him, or, like you say, an accomplice or something, but something gave Lisa the impression that she was dealing with an organization.
Right.
It's interesting.
Yep. So much like Paula, the first, girl that went missing related to John, Lisa's family would receive typed letters that were signed by Lisa in the following weeks. Just like Paula, this is becoming his MO, his calling card. He types out these letters that are supposedly from the girl that, ran away, that he's killed. And then he would have their signature at the bottom. And you have to wonder if he was using his Xerox machines from his prior business to do so.
Yeah.
These letters would say Lisa and Tiffany were fine and that they'd run off with a man named Bill. At the same time, across town, the Robinsons family was celebrating exciting news. John had just helped secure the adoption of a baby for his brother Don and his wife Helen. So this is the younger brother that we were talking about, who had always had a problem having a child with his wife, and they desperately wanted to be parents. Mm-hmm. And John he was always closest to this sibling, his younger brother Don.
Okay.
And so he took it upon himself to fix that problem Don was having and procure a baby for him. And this would be, the little baby that he had taken from the mother that he had killed, this little baby Tiffany.
Right.
This couple, Don and his wife, had tried unsuccessfully for years to have a child of their own, but when the plan did not unfold, the couple looked to adopt, a fact that they had mentioned before to John. They knew of his charitable works with troubled women and his ties to shelters. And John presented his brother with what looked like all the necessary paperwork signed by local judges and officials, along with this baby.
Yeah.
And so they thought it was on the up and up, allegedly. Believe that if you want, or maybe believe that Don knew what was going on and was maybe there.
Right, but there's no evidence to think that Don and his wife Ellen knew anything, or Helen rather, knew anything about this. There's no evidence about that, but it is funny looking back at how the girl kept saying they.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, how she kept saying they in the hotel room. Yeah, it is odd. It is odd, but that doesn't mean that they knew. That still doesn't mean anything, right? That still doesn't. Even if Don is there at the hotel room, maybe he still thinks this is part of the process.
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. So this baby would, at a certain point, kind of be presumed dead, because it was the mother was connected to John Edward Robinson, a known serial killer later on, and so, but they would come to find out that she's alive and well to this day, and actually did an interview with ABC in that special we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, check that out. She doesn't go by Tiffany anymore. She has a different name. She was adopted by another family and lived out her life.
Yeah. That was a shock to her. My God. Listen, dude, the fact that her uncle killed her mom, right? I mean, the guy who she thought was her uncle. Think about that. She grew up with him for 15 years, right? As John.
So I'm not sure if were they saying that the family that, adopted her was John's brother? Is that who actually raised her? Or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they raised her for 15 years. Yeah. And and she was being raised not knowing that her uncle killed her real mother. You know what I'm saying?
Jesus, yeah.
And he just kept that shit, I guess, a secret and just was good old Uncle John for 15 years. Wow.
Crazy.
Psychopath.
Yep. So, this information would not be uncovered for over 15 years, what happened to young Tiffany. And then following Lisa and Tiffany's disappearance was that of 27-year-old Catherine Clampett. She had moved to the area to stay with her brother while she tried to build a better life for her son, who had stayed with her parents back in Texas. However, shortly after arriving, Catherine would take a job with a local businessman. And you could guess who that is. And she would never be seen or heard from again following taking this job. However, by this time, Steve Hames, the parole officer, was pasting together a picture of the businessman that painted a very different picture than the person that he put out for the public. Mm-hmm. He, along with the FBI and both Missouri and Kansas police, were building files on the area con man. I mean, you could see these links. He starts working with these young women who immediately go missing, and then their families get these typed letters that are all the same.
Right.
It's like he's building their case for them.
And something else.
He's a smart dude, but like this is just dumb to be sending.
It's like he's just getting brazen at this point. Like we talked about earlier. I mean, all the slaps on the wrist. He probably thinks he can't be caught. But another thing that we haven't mentioned yet is for all these hotel rooms where he's meeting these girls, he's using a company credit card, quote unquote company credit card, but it's in his real name. This is what baffles me. Like, how did it take him?
Even though he's spreading fake names a lot of times.
Still, the credit card that books the room is in his real name, John Robinson.
Yeah.
And yet there's still, like, I don't know. It just baffles me that it took them this long.
And what's funny is he was lazy because the aliases he would make were always John, but it would be a different last name.
Right. Right. Well, you know what that is. That's just in case your instincts or, somebody asks you your name and you blurt out your actual name.
Or he was well known around the community, so I'm sure he oftentimes would be walking or driving down the street and be like, "Hey, John."
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to cover it up, too.
Yeah.
Right on.
He's got a little Gacy in him. There you go. There's the reference.
Oh, here we go.
Get annoyed every time we bring
I didn't
up
want to say it, but it's almost damn impossible not to. I didn't want to say it.
He's got that same jolly outward appearance to the public.
Yeah. Yep. They're both named John. Come on.
Yep. So John was picked up again in late 1987 and finally seems to be facing some consequences. He receives an extended sentence for various scams and probation violations, but is released by 1993. So he spends, over 5 years in prison for, these accumulations of scams and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But while in prison, he landed a job working in the prison's library. He was well-behaved and liked by everyone, but was a master manipulator in prison and seemed to thrive, honestly. Of course he would. I could see him somehow making his way to like the highest position you could as an inmate.
Yeah. He just knew what people wanted to hear. He knew
who
what
else was loved in prison was Gacy as well. Remember, he was like the head chef and shit.
You better quit with all these Gacy references. You're going to get us a 1 star.
Sorry. Yeah. But it was in prison that John Robinson was also exposed to the internet and began to form ideas of how to take his business pursuits and other pursuits online. So this is a new opportunity for him. It's Absolutely. A new world, a digital world, and he's going to be a part of it. While working in the library, John was able to seduce a 49-year-old woman named Beverly Bonner and tell her all about his hydroponics company and how great it would be, how great it would do with the internet now. Mm-hmm. And so, even from behind bars, he is, seducing these women to come work with him.
Yeah.
Eventually, he is able to convince Bonner to leave her husband and come to Kansas to be partners with him. And shortly after he is set loose from Western Missouri Correctional Center, Beverly Bonner files for divorce from her husband, packs her bags, says goodbye to her friends, and is never seen again.
Jeez. He must be some charmer, huh?
Dude, working angles behind bars, thanks to the internet.
That's insane.
And so Beverly's alimony checks are cashed for the next 18 months, but no one knows where she is. Her stuff was graciously being looked after in a storage unit by her good friend, John Robinson.
Oh, that's so nice.
What a good guy.
Yeah, the best.
Yeah, I killed you, but I'm looking after your things. Okay?
Yeah, right. Make sure no one gets your shit.
And for a while, her family was actually satisfied with John's stories and alibis. She had left willingly to another state. They couldn't keep good tabs on her. And, she said she was going off to start this business with this guy. So why wouldn't they believe him when he's telling the family, oh, yeah, things are going great?
Right. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, this went along fine until a year later when one of Beverly's sons died and she failed to turn up at his funeral.
Oh.
The whole time, no one knew Beverly was ever in danger. They were being fed lies that she was happily traveling in Australia or living in Canada or whatever worked best for John. But, when she doesn't show up to her own son's funeral, that raised some alarms.
Hell yeah, it does.
Yeah, but meanwhile, with the arrival of the internet, John was turned his focus to the internet, creating a connection to the rest of the world, and finally being brought to the community, the BDSM community. He really works his way into that as well on the internet.
Right.
So John maintained the apartment that apartment he got earlier in Kansas City, we talked about in that seedy part of town. He still had that and rented it out over the years as a storefront for his business. And out of it, it was believed he was running a brothel. So using this business for several means.
Yep.
And online, he's able to connect with exactly what he wanted, a slave. John joins every BDSM forum and chat room he can find. It's there that he first becomes known as, quote, slave master.
Yeah, and this right off the bat was a weird thing for this community because they say that most masters don't actually call themselves master. Apparently, that's like a taboo
seems like
thing.
a bit of a red flag, right?
I get that. I feel like that's safe to say in about every aspect. If someone is just adamant about call me this, I'm like, okay, well, you're definitely not that then.
Right, exactly.
Like, you shouldn't have to say it so much if you are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree.
That was just another thing that could have exposed him, in a field that he wasn't familiar with, that he was out here bullshitting people.
Yeah. Nonetheless, in 1999, through the internet, he lures Isabella Lewicka, a 21-year-old Polish immigrant. He promises to put her up and give her an allowance and a job, all in exchange for her signature for a signature on his slave contract.
Right, which is what she was looking for anyways.
Mm-hmm. But of course, after leaving for Kansas, Lewicka is never heard from again. But all of her family is still abroad and is kept satisfied with the letters that John is sending, saying that she's improving her life. In 2000, he tries the same ruse with 28-year-old Suzette Truton. He offers her a job traveling the world on a yacht while she cares for his elderly father. What a story he tells there. His father's been dead for years at this point, and he clearly doesn't have a yacht, but he spins this web and traps Suzette, who seems pretty straightforward, except John's dad had been dead for years, does not own a yacht, and the tale nonetheless works. And in early 2000, Suzette leaves Michigan and heads for Kansas.
Now, there's a BDSM element to this relationship as well, because Suzette was also a submissive and was looking for a master as well. So she thought, this is perfect, right? I can be a slave, live in with the master, and still get paid for a job taking care of his father.
Travel around on a yacht.
So you see what I mean? So he's
sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So he's just feeding all these pluses, all these amazing things that I can give you that this will provide.
And this is early internet, when people actually believed people.
Right.
Before people realized that most of the internet is a fucking scam and that everybody on there is living a lie.
Right. Before we realized we shouldn't send money to Nigeria.
Yes.
This was
exactly.
Yeah, in
you're
2000.
not the clearinghouse winner.
Right. For the third time this week.
Exactly.
Oh, classic.
So, so nonetheless, the tale worked, and in early 2000, she left Michigan and headed for Kansas. And after a while of not hearing from her daughter, Carolyn Truton, Suzette's mother, became worried. She was very close to Suzette, and the two talked every day. John tried to wave off Carolyn, and of course, the letters kept coming. But all attempts to speak with her daughter personally proved futile, and Carolyn was forced to turn to the police. So these letters John's sending, she's not satisfied with those. She wants to actually talk to her daughter, believe it or not. So Carolyn is able to connect with Steve Hames, the parole officer who just keeps going, man. He's a beast.
Mm-hmm.
He's never stopped trying to prove that John was up to more than anyone knew. And with the help from local detectives, they located Suzette's dogs. She had 2 Pekingese dogs that she kept with her all the time, and the 2 of them, those exact dogs were picked up in Robinson's neighborhood on March 1st, 2000. So he just set the dogs free in his neighborhood, and
they just stuck around.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Exactly. When detectives visit, those are pampered. That's a pampered breed of dog. They're not going to fend well out there.
No, they don't live in the wild. They're waiting to be let in.
They were just like walking around with puppy eyes, like, someone feed us and bring us inside.
They're just out there shitting on the porch, just waiting to come back in.
Right. So when detectives visited the dogs who had already been adopted out, they called them by their former names, and the dogs not only responded, but approached the detectives.
Ooh, that's damning.
Yeah. So now detectives knew something was going on, but still had no reason to drag John in, so they began to follow him. So they put him under surveillance. The detectives obtained obtained shredded documents from his trash and followed him everywhere for some time. But the break in the case finally came when a victim came to the police. One of the women who John met fled a sexual encounter with him after he got too rough with her. She ran from her hotel room with a bloody nose to the front desk of her hotel room, of the hotel. She asked for assistance and came to realize that the man was using a false name. So she called the police and reported the incident. Very nice.
Yes, finally.
Finally, with firsthand experience with this guy being cruel and violent. So with this, the parole officer Haynes is able to secure a search warrant for the Olathe property that Robinson and his wife and children are currently living at. During this search, police knocked over. Oh my God! Yeah, I forgot how quickly this goes from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
So during the search of Robinson's property, police find some barrels, some 55-gallon drums, and we've done cases. We've done at least one case with bodies and barrels.
This
before.
is some Australia shit right here.
Yeah. During the search, police knocked over a 55-gallon drum that appeared to leak what they thought was blood. When they opened the barrel, the remains of Suzette appeared to be inside. Another barrel was found, and the remains were too degraded to identify, but police believed that it was Isabella Lewicka, and was later confirmed to be her. 3 additional barrels were discovered at the storage unit police discovered while following Robinson. Here they find 3 more barrels, which they believed contained the remains of the other 3 missing women, Lisa Stacy, Paula Godfrey, and Catherine Clampett. They believed, they were hoping or thinking that was what they were going to be finding was Stacy, Godfrey, and Clampett. However, they were shocked to find out that it was actually the bodies of 3 women they didn't even know were missing. Beverly Bonner, the woman that he had connected with while in prison.
Right.
Her body was in one of the barrels, plus the remains of 45-year-old Sheila Faith and her 15-year-old daughter, disabled daughter, Debbie Faith. So now they've got 3 new victims. They didn't even know they didn't even connect to John yet.
Right.
They've got the bodies found on his property. John had apparently lured them with the same promises of housing, employment, and anything else they needed. He had scammed them, killed them, and continued to cash their disability checks. The Faith and Lewicka families had no idea their loved ones had even been in danger. They had all been tricked by John, and after the house of cards that John had built came tumbling down, the evidence against him, which had been aloof for so long, now seemed to spring forth from every crack of his facade. So I don't believe that Lisa Stacy, the mother of the little baby that, they never found the baby. Obviously, the baby is still alive to this day. She's now a woman. Right. But I don't believe Lisa Stacy's body's ever been found. Paula Godfrey or Catherine Clampett, I don't know. I don't believe they were ever found either. Okay, Paula Godfrey remains never recovered. Lisa Stacy never recovered, and Catherine Clampett never recovered. So those 3 were never found. And sadly, even with him still being alive in prison today, at 78 years old, has never come forward and given up where he put their bodies, which is crazy to me because he would end up ultimately they would accept like a plea deal to get him out of the death penalty. So they know that he didn't want to that he was afraid of the death penalty.
Right.
They should have used that as leverage to, recover the bodies of the 3 women that we know he killed that were never found.
Yeah, absolutely. They should have. But they already made a deal? What did they get out of the deal?
So in 2003, he was found guilty for 3 murders. And then in 2005, he admitted responsibility for 5 homicides in Missouri. And at trial in Kansas City, a deal to receive multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole and avoid more death sentences was agreed upon.
Oh, because he admitted to 5 homicides.
Yeah.
Okay.
But why not give the locations of the bodies of the 3 that we know for sure he killed? I know like Lisa Stacy's daughter, I forget what her real name is now, the adopted daughter, what she in that ABC special was still out there, she wants to recover her mom's body.
Right. Of course. Why wouldn't you? You'd want to know who you came from, what happened to her.
And the only person that knows, John Robinson, is still alive, 78 years old, sitting in prison and hasn't come forth and given up that information.
And that's what makes his narcissistic ass still relevant, that piece of shit.
Yeah. And investigators suspect more victims remain undiscovered. I mean, there was large periods of time where, it's not believed that he killed, but very possibly he did. Like much like every case we cover with a serial killer, you have to assume there was at least a few more victims.
Right. And if there's 3 bodies we don't know of, where was he putting them before he started putting them in barrels? You know
That's what I'm saying. He had barrels on his property, and then he also had barrels in his storage facility. So who knows where else he could have had more barrels?
Right, because he was acquiring all types of shit from these victims that he was killing, and he took more from them than just disability checks or alimony checks or whatever. He took storage locker keys, passwords.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like all this other shit that he had access to. There's just no telling where those other three could be.
Yep.
There's really not, man. Wow. Early days.
Yep.
The chat room
What
killer.
a case. There's so much more to this case that, you could get into each and every little bit of corruption that he did and all the fraud and ripping off of companies.
Yeah.
But I think you guys get the gist of it as far as all that fraud. But clearly was a psychopath murderer as well.
Yeah, no doubt. This is a typical criminal escalation. But what's odd is that the childhood was fine. Allegedly. Yeah. I mean, other than his father being absent, I guess, and being an alcoholic. But other than that, his childhood seemed fine.
Yeah, man. He fits the bad apple mold, I guess. Nature versus nurture.
Yeah. This seems to be a nature one, I guess you're saying?
Yes. Bad from the jump.
That's right.
Sociopath, able to trick people into thinking he was one thing when he was another. Two-Face,
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something.
He crossed a lot of boundaries that we typically see, like, a certain type of offender, a sexual sadist that kills for the pleasure of, getting off on their pain.
Yeah.
And then we see people that kill for financial gain. He did both. Like, he fit so many molds.
I guess. I
don't exactly know what his main motivation for killing was. I want to say it was financial benefit. Like, he was cashing their checks. He was picking people that had
it had to be
income, Social Security checks, and things like that he could continue to cash. But also, we know that he was into the darker parts of BDSM, and he got off on people's pain as well. So maybe it was like a double benefit for him when he killed.
But here's the thing, though: when you have someone that comes and lives with you and signs in to be your slave, don't you have pretty much control over them anyways? That's part of the draw of the relationship. So why kill them unless for money and their assets?
Yeah,
I
think he was always financially motivated.
Right. He had the perfect gig if he wanted it. He could have had these people live in and be a sex slave and whatever and just do work for him if he wanted that.
Very true, but he killed them all almost immediately.
Yeah.
So
exactly. So it wasn't really about the sex. I mean, I think obviously he probably had sex with them, but I think it was more about just the assets.
Yeah.
Just pulling another scam.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, don't scam your armpits.
No,
with
don't do that.
With some aluminum and paraben-filled bullshit.
No.
Get the real deal.
That's right. Don't scam your armpits. I like that. Don't cheat yourself out of an all-natural deodorant like Oh My Gaia, an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Guys, their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while still maintaining effectiveness. At Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. Guys, there's tons of scents to choose from vanilla to cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, which I'm wearing today, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, fireside, bergamot, amber, pear, sweet pea, sailor, barbershop, and so much more, guys, including our very own scent called True Crime Pine. True Crime Pine, one of my favorites. I always keep a jar on hand. And because you
want to slap your old mama.
It does. It smells so damn good. Anybody can wear this shit. I don't care if you're a lumberjack or if you're a secretary. It doesn't really give a fuck. You can smell amazing in your True Crime Pine. And because you guys are True Crime Guys listeners, you can use the word creeper for 15% off your order. That's CREEPER for 15% off your order at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram or ohmygaia.com. That's OHMYGAIA.com. And as always, guys, there's a link in the description to Oh My Gaia and all of their amazing deals that they have to offer. And again, use the code word creeper, guys, for 15% off.
All right on. I want to thank those of you who have taken a minute to go and rate and review the show on iTunes and various places. This one, we last recorded on the 2nd. This one says it's from the 1st, but I don't remember. I would remember this person's name on here. Zelly Dragmeyer.
Yeah, they might have snuck in under the wire or something.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and give you a shout out. Zelly Dragmeyer says, fun and easy to listen to, 5 stars. I enjoy True Crime Podcast quite a bit, and I've listened to several. I like the way they do fun intros for every episode and how casual they are. They break up the tragedy and horror with a bit of comedy, which maybe we have read that one. Anyways, thank you for that. Let's go Marty Party in the U.S. says Creeper for life.
Nice.
Love true crime, guys. I've been listening for a while, and I'm happy to see the podcast and Creeper Army grow. Keep up the great work, guys. Thank you.
Hell yeah.
Then we got Fuck Robin Hood in the U.S. I wonder if this is a stock investor that
right. Sounds like
screwed over by Robin Hood or something. Says awesome show. These guys do a great job telling stories and being likable. I look forward to listening every week. And Lauren, I ask you to bring back your NFL podcast for the playoffs. I really enjoyed it as well. Thank you for all you do.
Yeah,
I talked about that briefly on Just the Banter. I'm going to see Tori today. We're going to watch football today, and maybe I'll see if he wants to do at least one show for the playoffs and give some Super Bowl predictions and things like that.
That'll be fun.
And that would be Full House Fantasy Podcast. Check it out. We haven't done an episode in a while, but we're going to ramp up for next season, and he wants to take it more serious. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
Then we got J Block in the U.S. says, one of the best, well-done true crime podcasts out there. Note, please re-examine all the evidence in West Memphis 3. So this is one of those people that believes that Damian Eccles is a demon and that he was guilty. So we talked about this on Just the Banter a little bit as well, that we were undeniably biased when we did the West Memphis 3 case, and I still am a staunch believer that they were innocent. That being said, I don't put much clout into like the evidence against them because I just don't want to believe it.
Right.
So we're human. We're not perfect. So we thought maybe it'd be a cool concept to do a case and try to make the case against them as far as what evidence there is,
right,
and play the other side a little bit. Do an episode on Patreon just for that.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, just go into it with the mindset that we're trying to prove them guilty.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm hoping this DNA that's being tested now comes out and proves their innocence, and then we won't even have to bother with that.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be a fun episode nonetheless. So yeah, nonetheless, I mean, we can disagree on things, and I appreciate J Block for totally seeing things differently than us as far as West Memphis 3 goes, but still enjoying the show and leaving us a 5-star rating.
Absolutely,
thank you. And then we got my boy Issa, who actually I trained jiu-jitsu with. He's been talking about. He listens to the show and he's been talking about leaving a review. He finally did. He says, "Not gonna lie, this podcast is actually really interesting. Me and the wife listened to this on our day serving pools. Just make sure y'all remember us when you make it big. Best vibes."
Right on. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, Issa's cool, man. We trained jiu-jitsu together. So yeah, shout out. And then we got Lat76 in Great Britain over there. These dudes are great listen whilst I'm working my earphones and laughing away to myself at what they say next and getting funny looks from work colleagues as I laugh with them. But hey, they come in with some funny shit, lighthearted, cool stuff, but get to say nitty gritty from one. I don't even know what you're talking about. From one proud to, I guess it's the accents that's fucking me up.
Yeah.
From one proud to say, no offense taken on that one from a UK listener. Keep up the creep and cheers, guys. Thank you, Lat76, and cheers from over the pond, mate.
Absolutely. Thank you for the support over there. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Get some of those coworkers on board. You can laugh with them.
Speaking of support, let's talk how you can support us with joining our Patreon page and getting a bunch of content. It's well worth your $2, believe me. There's so much. You can't get more content for $2, I don't think.
I don't think so either.
Not a chance.
No way.
So at patreon.com/truecrimeguys, $2 a month gets you access to all of our backlog of Patreon exclusive episodes, which we've had Patreon for over 3 years. And once a month, when you don't hear us put out an episode on this free feed, it's because we did an episode over there. And usually it's the ones that require the most research and are longest and insane, like Ed Kemper and Ted Bundy and all those crazy big cases, 2 to 3 hours long. They're all over on Patreon, and $2 get you access to all of those, plus whatever new episodes we come up with. And if you want even more content, you can go to the $5 tier a month, and you can pay for this up front, by the way, and not have a monthly charge on your bill.
That's right.
And you save 10% by doing so. But at the $5 tier, you get Just the Banter, which is a show that Michael, it's an extra show we do every Friday where we sit down and just hang out, answer listener questions, hypotheticals, and all kinds of fun stuff. So yeah.
Yep.
Check that out, patreon.com/truecrimeguys.
And we ultimately end up talking about show stuff, as Lauren has mentioned multiple times during this episode. Well, we talked about that on Just the Banter. So sometimes you do get a little inside information on shows that we might do, cases we might cover, and get our opinions on cases that we've covered in the past or whatnot. So we have a little more time to go in depth in those without people going, why is this episode half about Gacy? It's supposed to be fucking, So that's what we do that at. But and if you guys are already on Patreon, you can check out some of the other shows like Full House Fantasy Football that Lauren mentioned earlier on free platforms wherever you listen, as well as Strange and Unexplained, where we tackle unsolved, missing persons, strange phenomena, cases like that we typically tend to shy away from on True Crime Guys. We usually try to stick with solved cases and big hitters on True Crime Guys. Whereas, like I say, on Strange and Unexplained, it's just that. They are strange cases, off the wall, typically unexplained, missing persons, cases that get very little attention. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we try to do. New episodes come out, Strange and Unexplained, every single Monday. Guys, I think we're approaching 90 episodes, I think, on Strange and Unexplained.
That's insane,
man. I know.
God, how the days go by, huh?
They fly by, dude. Been doing it for almost a year and a half. So, Dang. Yeah. So, tons of content under the True Crime Guys umbrella, guys. There's plenty to listen to. So,
that's right.
And there's links to everything that we mentioned right below this description. And if you want, you can find it all in one place on the True Crime Guys link tree. Like I said, right below the description and sponsors of this episode.
All right.
That's it.
Any last words?
No, I think I'm good, man. I'm ready to wrap this thing up, go watch some football.
That's right. Last week, regular season, there's going to be a lot of playoffs berths decided today, and a lot of teams disappointed.
Yep.
It's all coming down the wire. I'm excited for today, for sure. Everybody, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Keep creeping.
Keep creeping, guys.
True Crime Guys. In the desert, we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us, cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder, get murder, get murder. True Crime Guys. In the desert, we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us, cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder charming.
You hush your mouth, boy.